What's up, y'all? Sparty here. This is part 2 of the telephoto comparison video between the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III and the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. Now, I will go a little bit more into the specs on this one. I'm not really sure about f-stop and whatnot, but I will talk about the overall hardware itself. I know the 5x zoom on here is f3, and I think it's roughly, what I can do is this. I could just take a goddamn photo and it'll tell me. So do f2.3. Go into the details. Okay, so the 3.2 X telephoto on here is f1.8, whereas on here I'll just check both focal lengths, since it has 2 different focal lengths. So boom, f2.3 on the 70 millimeter. And f2.8 on the 105. So this is a 12 megapixel sensor. Has 2 different focal lengths, 70 and 105. Those are 2 different optical focal lengths. So it's not one of the focal lengths. So it's not one of these cute things that a lot of manufacturers do, Apple, where they sit here and say, oh, it's 3 lenses. And realistically, it's just one to just software cropping. No, this has 2 separate hardware optical focal lengths, and that's really nice. You would sit here and say, okay, what's the actual point of that? The point mainly is so that when you're at the 105, you have obviously an optical, it's optically sharper, obviously. So when you go to the 105, from, like, say, the software crop from the 70 to 105, it's actually a far sharper thing and far sharper picture. And when you software crop to the 300, obviously it looks worse when you go from one to the other. So I will show you guys in basic speak exactly what that means. So your 1x zoom is your wide camera, so your basic camera, your main camera, right? Your 2.9 is your secondary focal length. Your 4.4 is your tertiary focal length, so your 105, and it goes from 105 to 300, so it goes to 12.5x zoom. And a lot of people, when this phone came out, let me actually put that back in program auto. A lot of people, when this phone came out, they sat here and said that the telephoto zoom on the Xperia 1 Mark III is trash because it doesn't go all the way up to 100x zoom. And I'll tell you this now, as somebody that had an S21 Ultra alongside this phone, if you want to take actual pictures with the telephoto camera, the Xperia 1 Mark III completely blew the S21 out of the water in a lot of instances. Like I've compared it plenty of times. I'm not going to sit here and do it now. That's not what this video is for. But in terms of what this camera can do, especially with its AI super resolution zoom, a lot of people like to sit here and say that Sony doesn't do any sort of software processing on their cameras, which is stupid because they do. Every phone does some sort of software processing unless you're in like a pro mode, right? And this does that to an extent. And when you're taking pictures of flowers or portraits, it will do a very good job at blurring out the background and making sure, and it has a pretty decent crop where it doesn't stitch, has pretty decent stitching to where you can't necessarily tell where the software stitching is compared to other phones that just do a heavy stitching, and you can obviously tell where it's at. In some cases, it actually does a pretty decent job at not having that be the case. Now, the Leica has a 3.2x zoom and a 5x zoom. And what I'll show you guys here, This does go up to 120x zoom, so not on that. So for those that care, it goes up to 120x. Now, this isn't the mode that you go into if you want to get moon shots. For that, what you would do is you would go into the supermoon setting right there, and you would get that. But both cameras on here are 250 megapixel sensors, f1.8, f3.0. And you would say, oh, the f-stop on the Xperia's cameras are faster, so they should be better. Well, you also got to keep in mind these are larger sensors, not in megapixel count, but in overall size. So an f-stop of 3 on here is going to look better than an f-stop of 2.8 on here at the 105 millimeter length. So just obviously that's just something to, keep in mind. Which is better? I'm gonna leave that up to you guys. For me personally, I do think the 13 Ultra does better in a lot of situations, but in a lot of cases, I don't necessarily mind the pictures that come out of the Xperia 1 Mark III to this day. And that's honestly crazy to think about because, the phone is almost 3 years old at this point. But what Sony did with this camera is actually pretty special. And I understand why they decided to go with a fully optical zooming lens with the 1 Mark IV and the 1 Mark V. And honestly, that's impressive in its own right. But having two different focal lengths is something that's very interesting and something that makes me not want to give up this phone, because it does a pretty good job at taking pretty damn good photos. And I'll just let you guys see for yourself between the two which one is better for you. So this is Spartan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a wonderful what day is it? Tuesday. Whatever time of day it is. If you like the video, like it, share with people that are interested in this sort of content, and have a good one. Also, quick thing, I forgot to say this. The first photos in these batch are from the Sony. The second ones are the Xiaomi. So I forgot to say that. That's all I got to say now. Just decided to do a quick walk, so I'm not just in my apartment saying this, but yeah, that's it.